Olszynski Law Firm is an official sponsor of Top Bin 90, specializing in personal injury, criminal defense, DWI, family law, and workers' compensation. The Olszynski Law Firm provides professional, trusted legal services to clients facing a variety of challenges. With a team of experienced attorneys dedicated to protecting your rights, the Olszynski Law Firm is the legal support you can count on.
Hi, I'm Justin Olszynski, the founding partner of the Olszynski Law Firm. Me and my wife started this firm back in 2010 with the sole purpose of providing excellent service to our clients, giving our clients a personal touch because we had worked in bigger firms where we saw that not happening. We handle criminal defense matters, civil personal injury, wrongful death, workers' comp, and family law matters. We have a team of attorneys that care about the outcome of your case, and we will fight to make sure that you get the justice you deserve.
Hello and welcome to episode 48 of the Top Bin 90 podcast. Snowpocalypse 2026 has taken over, so none of us are leaving our house, although I did try to leave today, so that was a story in itself. But we're back. Obviously, we're not in our regular studio, but we got a jam-packed show today, and we got a jam-packed crew. Starting off with my chief editor and my co-host of the TB90 podcast, Mr. Bryan, Bam Hour Media. How are you tonight?
Doing well, man. Getting a little stir crazy. I'm ready to get out of the house for sure.
Nice. And then we've got two not newbies, but their first time on the podcast. We got Mr. Bryan from the Yeti clan. How are you today, sir?
Doing good. Thank you for having me, fellas.
Nice. How's the snow treating you?
It was fine over here, man. I mean, we got the couple inches, but I worked today, so back to normal.
Did you or did you not build the snowman?
I didn't.
Come on, bro. All right, kick him out. No, I'm kidding. And we also have Mr. JT. I've been trying so hard to make sure I pronounce your last name right that I didn't even know your first name. And I'm going to mess up both now. Faribault. How are you, my man?
I'm good. Happy to be here.
Nice. Loving the kit. You got anyone's name on the back or is just a...
No name. No name.
It's a good kit, though. I like the colors and so.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites. If this one had a name on it, I feel like I always see Weston McKinney when I picture this kit.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. Great player, too. We'll see where he ends up at as well with the Juve contract. So with that said, let's get started. Obviously, we're going to talk about Charlotte FC's preseason win 1-0 against Sporting KC. Undefeated in 2026. Is it the year they win the MLS Cup? We'll see. They also signed the center back that we've been waiting for. But was this the center back that they were after is a better question. And we'll talk more about that. Charlotte FC reportedly transferring Nymphasia to Bayern Munich. That deal looks like it's about to happen. We're going to talk contract situation. Wilfried Zaha, Pro and Rel in the USL. Dang, that kind of rhymed. Pro and Rel in the USL. Hey, sign me for a jingle. And a couple more topics, a couple of fans' questions as well. So let's get started. Charlotte FC with another win this past weekend. Obviously, we couldn't watch it, but we've got some of the updates. And Bryan also wrote a phenomenal article on that as well. So, Bryan, I'm going to have you start off. What can you tell us about this win, that Charlotte FC had? 3 halves, it felt like 30, 30, and 45, I guess just give us a little update.
Yeah, I mean, main thing was that Dean Smith's clearly looking to get some of those guys who are in either competition battles or Crown Legacy players looking for a bigger role, new contract, getting them plenty of minutes. I think Morrison Ajiman's one name where he's gotten several minutes now in both matches. Jack Neely has gotten shifts both at right back and center back. Diani in this match also got moved back to center back to cover for Tim Ream. Neely got a chance at right back because Nathan Byrne also dealing with an injury. Ream and Byrne both with slight calf issues right now. Nothing major, I don't think, but looking for, who are the backups, who are the third string options if things were to get desperate throughout the season. That's what Dean Smith is kind of using this preseason for. And then on top of it, just seeing who else is worthy of a contract. I think Rodolfo Loco, again, another guy who's getting a lot of minutes, Uchegbu as well. And I think I was actually kind of surprised that he decided to sub Vargas off for Uchegbu versus Abada. My take on that is he's trying to get Abada as many reps as possible. I think he's also trying to get Toklo a lot of reps because just trying to get Toklo just took a new number 9. There's going to be a lot more eyeballs on him, a lot more pressure now that he's taken that role on. I'm assuming Dean wants him to get as many reps as he can to really feel like he's locked in good form going into the season. And then I think Abada, he's just trying to figure out how to get him back and just see what his level even is right now. Whereas I think Vargas he's comfortable with him. He knows what he's got in Vargas. And I think that's why he kind of rotated him in and out a little bit. It was also good to see Luca De La Torre get another big run with Bronico. I think those are going to be important minutes to get some of these guys who are the new signings, Schnegg, De La Torre, these guys into the fold quickly. So I think those are my big takeaways. And Biel, Zaha, and Toffolo, I think playing in the attack as well. All three of those guys have talked about combining, getting 45 minutes. Goodwin finding Biel for a goal. I think those are all huge moments just to get the ball rolling for those guys.
Nice. Yeah. Bryan, what are you expecting? What do you want to see from Charlotte FC this preseason heading into the season? Obviously, a disappointing playoff run, right? And so I feel like everybody knows that, and they're kind of coming back like chomping at the bit a bit.
I expect from them from this preseason, especially in Coachella, is to see what their identity is. Against this preseason game, they only scored 1 goal, but we didn't concede. I'll take that any day. But I definitely want to see them if we're going to be scoring more, if Pep's going to be running the show or scoring. But I like what I saw. I mean, for the little bits that I heard from Dean's presser from the preseason game, he was trying to give guys minutes and trying to learn patterns of play from the back. So we'll see in Coachella, I guess. But I just want to see a team that is feared, that it's no longer a party environment. I want people to be scared of us.
Nice. It ain't Halloween, but you want to be scared of Charlotte FC. JT, talk to us a little bit about, one of the things that, we've heard a lot on is the team being, a bit more fit, right, heading into the season. And I think Harry Toffolo brought it up in his press conference today, that like everyone's a little bit more like, ready. Like they came in and Dean and also Zorn talked about being fit, How do you see that playing in terms of this preseason and going into the season?
I think it's a really good sign. Right off the bat, to hear Dean Smith say that this is the fittest that he's seen this team since starting is a wonderful sign. The fact that these guys have been grinding in the offseason and coming in ready to go, I think that just kind of sets the tempo from the start and shows that, like you guys said, this team is a team that wants to be feared and wants to prove that they're competing for all of the titles. So I think it's a wonderful sign, and I think it's just a building block. You come in fit, and then you take it from there.
Nice.
And to add to that, out of all these years that Charlotte's been around, it's not all about that we're fit. It's the core group of guys that are our main guys are here.
Mm.
We're waiting on that last minute signing to come in, and even the season starts and they're still waiting on their paperwork. Everybody's here.
Exactly, Bryan.
So, I expect to hit the ground running. Last week I asked you guys how many points do I expect, and Bryan was like 13 to 15. And I was shook, but now that I think about it, everybody's here, everybody's fit. I think we're gonna hit the ground running.
Yeah, I would also add that it's a plus that Pep Biel didn't play in playoffs and he came back kind of motivated, and he got a goal, he got some reps, and obviously from what Dean said in his presser, he was like he could have scored 1 or 2 more, so he probably had a couple other opportunities and was maybe a little bit rusty, but seeing him get back on the pitch and getting a goal, I think, is a great start to his preseason. Because you got to think back last year, he didn't really get a proper preseason, and he still was phenomenal in that first portion of the season. And I bet, that because there's a different level of expectation for him too, he kind of wants to live up to that. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit more. And from a guy like Pep Biel. Anything else you want to add to that, Bryan?
I mean, I think it's the confidence that they have when they're talking about their fitness. Like even in the presser today, like Harry Toffolo said, like there's like metrics we have and we know how fit we actually are. And like even surprised how like they're a little bit of shock in terms of how everybody from top to bottom of the roster is. And the fact that they keep bringing it up and the fact that like Harry had like numbers to kind of back it up. I expect this team to show up in San Jose this weekend and really show, because Harry said today, he's like, the team we're like running these other opponents ragged so far.
Yeah.
We feel like in preseason, like that's what the words he said. So like for them not to then show that also against San Jose this weekend, a team that's in a little bit of rebuild mode, brand new signing in Timo Werner, Chicho moving on, things like that. Like I would expect this team to go in against San Jose in Coachella and really like push them around a bit, because that's the talk of the town. That's what everybody in Charlotte is saying. It's been pretty unanimous. So it's important, I think, for them to show that when you actually, as a fan base, can see it streamed.
Yeah, something to add to that real quick, Jorge, too. It shows that there's competition within the squad, too. Yep. Not only are they competing and ready to compete against whoever they're facing, they're competing with each other and trying to be more fit and, get to the finish line faster. I'm sure that just raises the tempo in training as well.
Yeah, I would also add that one of the things that, Toffolo said in that presser too, and we got clips of it too. So, I mean, like we're going to jump in the gun a little bit, but he mentioned that Dean and Zoran, talked about, or Dean did talk about winning a trophy, and that's in their mind, right? So to me, I got to see the cohesiveness of the collective, right? Because that's what they're really banking on, that the collective of this team is going to get them that top 4 finish, is going to push them forward. And I mean, the key piece that they've been missing has been another center back. And we want to touch on that next. They signed Henry Kessler as a free agent. Bryan, talk to us about this move. My understanding of this, and I'll just give you guys a little bit of a scoop, is that, there was already another center back that was kind of in the works, European, from a pretty good league from the information I had, and that kind of fell through, and this was an option. So first, Bryan, I want you to talk to me a little bit about what can a guy like Henry Kessler bring. His name obviously sounds like a founding father, John Adams, George Washington, Henry Kessler. Outside of that, what can you tell us?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's won a trophy, right? He won Supporters Shield with New England after he first got into the league, drafted out of Virginia, and played in, first season was during the COVID year. So kind of a wild time to come into professional soccer. But then in 2021, had 29 starts, helped the team at the time break the record, right, for most points in a season. So he was a part of a really successful New England team, which then fell completely off the map since. And I think part of the issue with Henry Kessler, and I think the big question mark, is combination of him finding what his role with this club is. And then also it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what his role was because his time in St. Louis didn't seem like he really ever ended up fitting there in his year and a half there. And towards the end with New England, it seemed like they just constantly were in a rebuild, recycle mode year after year after winning Supporters Shield like they did. And so I feel like it's a combination of red flags for me in terms of him not having a ton of the reps needed to be like, oh yeah, he's a locked in, for sure going to just take Privet out of his role and be the locked in day one starter. At the same time, I think there's also the ceiling where he is capable of being a center back that's starting on a point record team, because he's done both. And so I think the ceiling is there. And then it's just whether or not he can solidify a role. I think the upside also is that Privet as a backup option is not a bad backup option. So if you go Kessler out of the gate, Privet's still available, and in 2024, Privet was awesome. So if he gets back to his form, having that as an outlet, I think mitigates some of the risks that we see in Kessler. Plus, he's only on a 1-year deal. If it doesn't work out, you cut your losses after this year as well.
Yeah. Bryan, we talked about Adilson Malanda, how he's going to be missed, big impact, Obviously, this name is not an exciting name, but what are you wanting from a signing like Henry Kessler going into the season?
Leadership, since he's been around the league, somebody that can bring discipline. Like Bryan said, either he starts or he can come off the bench. He can tweak, tweak whatever Dean wants to do tactically. But like I said, leadership and discipline, and like just show. There's a lot of young guys in Charlotte. Like just show what a good role model to the team, a good team player. And it seems like this is a signing that it's going to help us. And it's a long season, so he's going to be used sometime.
For sure. JT, are you wanting this to be the starting center back at Charlotte FC? Because, that's what he's brought in to do, right? To, replace a big gap. Obviously, Andrew Privet will be competing, but, who is going to be the starting center back? And I'd imagine it'd be him.
I'm going to say with my head, yes, I want it to be him, but with my heart, I want it to be Privet.
Yeah.
As someone that has been with Charlotte FC, came up through the ranks, you want to see the team curate someone into that starting role. And Privet seems like the perfect guy to do that. But also bringing Kessler in, you want him to be the guy that starts right away. You want him to be the guy that shows his experience, his leadership, and shows that he's played a role in a winning team and can lead this team to be a winning team as well. So I think it's kind of two sides of the coin of, yes, I would love for him to come in and start right away and show why he's meant to be there and why he was brought in. But also I would love for Privet to step up, compete with him, and say, dude, you're not going to just walk in and take the starting spot.
For sure. Yeah. Some people have a soft spot for Andrew Privet, especially the season where he was starting in 2024, as we mentioned. Bryan, I think one of the positives that I see also in a signing like this is that the experience that he can mesh with a guy like Tim Ream.
Yep.
Talk to us about that partnership. Talk to us about having an experienced backline and a goalkeeper like Kalina as well. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, and I think it was crucial. It's something we talked about even before any of their signings in the off season, when they just needed more players in their prime, right? Kessler's 27, Schnegg 27, Luca De La Torre 27. They went out and only got players entering their prime. So not only is it a guy who's got a lot of experience in MLS, but he's also entering his peak. And so for the short term, if things work, he's got the connection that he'll have with Ream, but at the same time, connection with this team long-term, where there's a whole new spine kind of put in place to build this team for now and also in the future. That was one of my biggest concerns. I was like, this team is going to look completely different in end of 26, going into 27. Now, if some of these pieces hit, Luca De La Torre, Schnegg, Kessler, you've got a whole new group that also that'll already fit in like a Pep Biel, Bronico. You already have half of your next rotation of starting lineup. Even if you lose a Ream, if you lose Westwood, Byrne, these guys, you already kind of have the next group set to phase in.
And it's not even it's add to that. It's also like this old guard is about to fade out. Westwood 30, I think 37.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Same thing with Ream. These guys are all, like maybe 1 or 2 seasons and they're gone, I believe. I would love for Westwood to stay and be in the coaching staff, but like Ream.
Listen, Ronaldo's 40 and out there in the Saudi league, so maybe we could get Westwood a couple more years, I was gonna ask you, Bryan, one of the things that we talked about was having a center back come in right in time for preseason, right in time to get gelled with the team. Just, how important is that, that obviously maybe this wasn't their original signing, but it is a guy that's going to be with the group, that's going to get a chance to understand the group. Even Harry Toffolo talked about it where, he finally gets a preseason with Charlotte, which is an added bonus for him.
Yeah, multiple weeks together, right? The whole back line will get to gel. They'll get to just hang out. Like that was another thing Toffolo mentioned in his press conference today was like he just like knew like don't mess with Zaha before 8 a.m. Like and just like joking about it, like because they're all kind of getting along. But like that's important to being a group of players and working hard together is like also just camaraderie on and off the field, knowing each other, knowing how to trust each other, knowing which buttons to push, all those kind of personal human things. And I think if you come in mid-season or late and the team has already started to gel, you kind of miss out on some of those key aspects of like building trust together as a group, that camaraderie. And so I think that helps with Kessler coming in a few weeks before. He still gets to travel with the team and be a part of the big games, right? Coachella, there's going to be like 4 games in the matter of like 9 days or something like that. It's like the 7th, then the 8th, and then I think they play another one on like the 11th or 12th, a couple of closed friendlies, and then another one on the 14th. So he's going to be able to get involved in all of those reps, all of those minutes. And I think that's also super key. I mean, I imagine he's going to come in decently fit, obviously used to the travel and the rigors of MLS, but the fact that he'll just be able to have, ideally, Dean will get him, I would imagine, at least 90 minutes or more throughout those 4 games to really get reps with all of these guys.
Nice. Yep. I think there's nothing more that we need to add. I think those are the key takeaways. For me, it's that, how well can he mesh with this team, right? And like you mentioned, 1-year contract. Let's see, can he be the guy, that feels like, obviously it was always going to be hard replacing Melanda, but if we can have a good, solid, back line is what's important, right? Because that's going to determine, to me, how far we even push for that top 4 as well. Because if you remember the season where it went from Latanzio to Dean, right? Like the first thing he did was make sure that back line was tighter, and we saw how much of an improvement that was. And so that's kind of, for me, a staple of Dean Smith's team. And so with that said, let's move on a little bit. I do want to play, since we keep talking about the press conferences, I want to hear from Charlotte FC's new goalkeeper signing. And so I'm going to play it now.
The biggest thing for me was the appreciation that I now hold for the MLS. The grass is not always greener. It's not always, brighter and bigger lights and everything when you do go abroad. The amount of challenges that I had to go through, which, I would love to touch on it at some future date, just to make it over there was not as simple as a club signing me and me just walking in there and everything being gifted to me. I actually had to test myself deep, reach into my own pockets and really, continue my career going in the direction that I wanted it to go. And it was something that was really challenging on me, but not only me, also on my family, because I have a wife and a young daughter that we had nothing, and we decided to move over to England with no contract, no guarantees, and just decided that we're going to make it work. And that's also the mindset that I have, is that, if I put my mind to it, I'm going to make it work. And so that's also what I think I can help bring to this club as well.
Yeah. Phenomenal press conference. To me, it sounds like he's a little bit bitter. Maybe not bitter is not the right word. Maybe like he was wrong done in his last team, Bolton Wanderers, Tyler Miller. Bryan, you were actually on this press conference. Talk to me about what you got, what can we expect? Because we touched on it a couple of shows before where I'm like, it feels like they keep trying to get somebody that can replace Kalina, And so talk to me.
Well, I mean, he's close to the level. I mean, he's definitely, he's had multiple seasons where he started in MLS. He was a part of LAFC's team when they first expanded into this league, and was a part of their Supporters Shield winning season in 2019, and he was the starting goalkeeper for a lot of that season. He had like 34 appearances at that time, and so he's been a part of a lot of good teams in MLS throughout his career, the Sounders as well. So he's seen a lot of the trophy winning that's happened, and he's just been around this league a long time. And then it seemed like he, one of those things when he was looking back later in his life was like, you know what, I would regret it if I didn't try to push this one time for Europe. And so he decided to do it in kind of maybe an off the beaten path kind of way. No guaranteed contract, as he said, which is kind of a wild move with a wife and young daughter. But it just shows also his grit, I think, fighting for it, finding a way to get on a club, even with no guaranteed contract after making that move. He also mentioned later on that he'd end up spending tens of thousands of his own dollars, like in that process. Don't know the full story. Like he said, he's looking to maybe share it at a later date. But it seems like there's some crazy stuff that happens in some of these other lower level leagues that maybe players in MLS sometimes take for granted as how good they have it here, how good their facilities and a lot of these situations are now compared to when they were when Eddie Pope was playing in a strip mall in 96. So like the facilities and stuff have come a long, long way. It's something Archie Goodwin also mentioned when he came to the team last year. He's like, oh man, the facilities here are like far and above better than what they were in Australia. So I think that's happening more and more consistently where the facilities are better. The team contracts are good. The league, like signed, dotted, they're good to go. Reggie Cannon, I think, was a player I remember like when he was spending time at Boa Vista, like he had issues like getting paid. Like he just like his contracts weren't clearing and stuff like that. So I think those situations sometimes get missed by these young Americans. I know Tyler Miller was in his 30s, but like a lot of these guys like think Europe's the way to go, and it's just not always green. Like he said, grass isn't always greener. And I think that's also why you see some of these guys coming back now. Georgi Mihailovic, Zach Steffen, right? Paxton Aronson. A lot of these guys are starting to come back that are kind of on the bubble because they're seeing like there's still good contracts to earn here. Miles Robinson, I think, is another good candidate who people thought he was going to leave, opted to stay. And I think there's just it shows how far MLS is coming in a really short time period.
Yeah. Yeti Bryan, I'm going to start calling you that. That would be confused as well. He also touched on his relationship with Aaron Hyde, who is the Charlotte FC goalkeeper coach. A guy like Tyler, what are you expecting from him, given that our number one is Kalina, and like I feel like he's proven time and time again that like he's gonna be number one.
Yeah, but Kalina also has some bad dips. Go back to the beginning of the last season when he had his kid. He had a terror. Like anything that was coming his way, either he was stopping it, would go in. He was just through a spell, and I think this is where somebody like him is gonna be ready to step in, because I don't think last year, who was our secondary? Bingham. It felt like he was here on vacation every other week, and every other weekend on his Instagram story, he was shooting. He was at the range shooting. He was here on vacation. So it feels like this season we got actually a goalkeeper that can push Kalina.
Yeah, I mean they did bring Drake Callender in at the end of the season, and Kalina.
He was chilling here too, man. I saw him. He was out the ball every other game, sitting on the bench.
JT, obviously the guy's got a great mentality. What do you see in the mix of competitions for goalkeeper now that Tyler Miller is also here at Charlotte?
Yeah, I think having a competitive goalkeeper or having a goalkeeper pool where they're all competing, that's the ideal scenario, and that's probably the situation where you want people or your players to be competing the most, because let's face it, goalkeepers have the harshest job where any mistake they make is put on a pedestal and is in the spotlight. And, we've seen Kalina be incredible and have spells where he is by far the best goalkeeper in the MLS. And then we've seen him have spells where he's not quite there, not quite locked in. And so having someone behind him that'll push him to be the best and to keep focus and keep competing, working to keep his spot, I think that's the best case scenario. So I think it's really comforting to know that we're in a good spot right there with our goalkeepers and can lead from the back line and have that as our base.
For sure. The only thing I would add is like what we were talking about with Drake Callender, who was on like 700K or something like that. Like how much does he hit in terms of that roster budget that we have, because that's important. I mean, we have those limitations in MLS, and like if you're spending a significant portion on 2 goalkeepers, then to me that's like what's actually going on. So curious to see what those numbers are as well. All right, let's move on and let's talk about some big news that we heard today. Nimfasha Berchimas is close to signing or is in advanced talks with Bayern Munich. Obviously, when Charlotte FC first was a team, he went on a trial. I think he was like 14 at that time or something like that, which is insane. He's not even 18 yet. And so he's been on a trial there. He's been on a trial at Manchester United, and so Yeti Bryan, talk to me about this move. Obviously, I think what also helps a guy like Nimfasha is that Patrick Agyemang was sold and is doing well. Adilson Malanda was sold and is doing well. Even though Nymph hasn't had a true opportunity with the first team, Charlotte can boast and say, hey, we have a good plan for our players that, they do well here and they can go out to another league and rock it out.
Absolutely. Even if he never plays a minute for the senior team at Bayern, this just validates that we're no longer an expansion team. We're a legit talent pool. That our and our academy it's a good development. Like everybody that's came out of the academy has done really good. Agyemang, Malanda, Berchimas. It just validates that we're a legit talent pool, not just an expansion team anymore. And a move like him and a kid like him, it's awesome to see. He's an awesome kid, great family, and the times that I got to see him at the Crown Legacy, he's a legit wonder kid. And the sky's the ceiling.
JT, obviously you have the U.S. men's national team shirt on. He's been rocking it at the youth levels, right? It's not every day that you get to see a player go from, an MLS team to one of the top teams in Europe. Just how significant is that for a market like Charlotte FC as well?
It's huge. And as you guys were talking about, having those players from Charlotte FC that have gone overseas and made an instant impact with their team, like Agyemang and like Malanda, it just shows, again, like Bryan was saying, that we have the facilities and we have the structure to grow players and to show that we can make players that will make it at the next level or a step up, at a level that's a step up from the MLS. And time with the U.S. youth national team just shows his quality even more. I mean, everyone in Charlotte has known how much Nymph is a wonder kid, but I mean, to score a goal at the U17 World Cup this fall, I think that just kind of shows that he's legit. And it kind of reminds me as well of, obviously the easiest name to go to is Alphonso Davies, because he went from the MLS to Bayern Munich at a very young age. The only difference is Nimfasha hasn't played for the first team and wasn't making an impact Alphonso Davies was, but that doesn't mean that he's too far off. And it's kind of, Alphonso Davies did it, so why can't Nimfasha do it as well?
For sure. TB90 Bryan, talk to me. Obviously, Bayern, a great team, but this is a team that's dominating the Bundesliga, that's got world-class players, how does this move make sense? I mean, one of the things that we haven't even seen Nimfasha actually break into the first team at Charlotte FC. What is Bayern expecting? What are they looking at when signing a guy like Nimfasha?
I think they're looking for a little bit more control over his development. I think that's why they're shooting their shot at this point in time. You'll see this from German clubs. They do it a lot. Dortmund did this with Pulisic when he was 16, Gio Reyna as well. Soon after that, you'll see a lot of teenagers from the U.S. If they pick a spot, it's oftentimes Germany because, it also depends on their dual nationality, family having spent time. If they're a military family, spent time in Germany a lot of the times. I think that was Weston McKennie's situation when he was younger and playing at Schalke. But the connection between the U.S. and Germany has been strong for a very, very long time, probably stronger than maybe any other nation in Europe.
Yep.
And so I think it's a combination of that and German teams also. I think it was Marcus Charis I saw he was in a conversation on X with Caleb about this situation, because I think our friend Caleb Adams mentioned he was kind of like, how does Nimfasha getting this move when he hasn't gotten the first team reps? And Marcus, who does a lot of scouting for different media companies and things like that, has mentioned that German teams like to kind of take control away from MLS clubs because of their concern of their development in the U.S. And just to kind of take control a little bit. One of the reasons being, I mean, like we've seen, Nimfasha really hasn't gotten those reps, those first team reps. Part of that also isn't necessarily just on the MLS or the like Dean Smith as a coach, and it falls kind of on MLS rules, which are slowly starting to change. Harry Toffolo, actually bringing it back to the press conference again, he mentioned this in the presser, like, hey, there's nowhere for young players to get reps
He did say
in
that,
MLS. Yeah. And so I think that also plays into it. If there's nowhere for him to get the reps, Bayern sees him, hey, we know this kid. We've seen him get reps firsthand. We like him. We can get him now at a lower price. We have the room. We don't have roster rules to deal with. We can just put the name on the books. We can loan him out to Bundesliga 2 or somewhere else in the Bundesliga if we need to try to get him reps. But the main thing is, I think at this age, even with the lack of experience, if they like the raw potential, they get him in on a low fee and be able to kind of mold him the way they want a little bit more into their style of play and their kind of player. And you see Germany, obviously Bayern Munich is always known for the big moves, but they also have been very good at making these kind of more uncanny. It's just a German thing to do, to be honest.
Would he be the first American in Bayern, or there's been another American that plays for Bayern?
Chris Richards was there, right?
Yeah. Was Donovan there at some point? Did I make that up? Yeah.
I
think he was, right?
I'll have to double check that.
Yeah.
But I think you're right, George.
Landon's pro career is pretty crazy. There was one time I was listening to his podcast, and he was like playing like professional indoor soccer at one point. Tim Howard mentioned, he's like, you have one of the craziest pro careers for being like the greatest American soccer player of all time.
Yeah, I remember like there was like 2-month spells that he would play at Everton, during like it was just weird. Oh no, he was at Bayern Leverkusen. Okay, I was close.
Yeah,
not really, but Matt Livingston brings up a really good question. He says, has Dean slightly mishandled Nimfasha? Surely if he's good enough to have Bayern Munich after him, he would warrant minutes over Smalls and the struggling Abada. What do you make of a question like that, TB90 Bryan?
I mean, I think it's a bigger issue. I mean, they signed Wilfried Zaha. Like, where's Dean going to play him? Like, I mean, he got hurt this year. You have Wilfried Zaha come in.
Yeah, he's Wilfried Zaha.
Pretty hard to, like, get minutes off of him. I think that's the main concern. It's just like you sign your marquee signing in his main position. Like, you're not good there.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you're saying too. You kind of answer that question without actually like answering that question specifically, which is, like the control of the development, I think is key. So, so we'll go with that. Okay, since we keep talking about this Toffolo interview, let's go ahead and actually play a clip from it and kind of go a little bit more in depth on it.
Definitely promotion relegation for me is something that I'd always been brought up in, and you never want to get relegated, and your goal is to get promoted. And if you can't get promoted, you want to win the league because you're in the top league. So I think it's definitely important. I think when you sort of see it towards the end of the season, when there's 5-10 games left, and I know the MLS there's no relegation, so teams do fall away and they start planning for the next season, where this would keep the league extremely competitive. So I do see a lot of strengths in it, but I also see the other side and how America have created the MLS, and they've got their rules, and it's working to this point. The only thing that I feel they miss out is the younger players in the team don't get the opportunity to have the loan system that they have in England as well, where players can go and play 15 games, come back a lot more mature, and and stuff like that. That's the only thing I feel like America's lacking, is the opportunity for the younger players to go and play. Yeah, but well, I had a big shock when I moved out here. The quality and the level that the players are at, the athleticism is amazing. It just shows you how close the leagues actually are. Yes, in the MLS you have the standout players. In the Championship you could have 5, 10, 15 players, all of that ability. So you have named 2 very good players that have gone over there as well, who had great careers here at Charlotte. But it does show you that the gap's getting smaller. You probably would have had this conversation 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You'd have been saying how big it is, and you'd probably be comparing it to League One. But now you can see the level. You've got players in this division that could play in the Premier League. So it's an exciting league, and it's growing rapidly, even in the short time I've been here.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things he mentioned, right? Obviously, let's first start with the pro and rel conversation, right? That's something that, the USL is implementing. Obviously, they want to be more competitive, with MLS. And so they have to figure out how they get the eyeballs, how they make something different. And I think that's a bold strategic move on their part. Yeti Bryan, talk to me a little bit about that. What he talked about as well, that, maybe teams like switch off a little bit near the end when some teams are fighting for promotion or relegation in England.
I'm a fan of like the regulate, like either you're about to get relegated or you're at the top. I just don't know if it's cool that they're going to do it. I just don't know if all the teams down like in the lower leagues got the ownership and the financials to do it. Because I would have thought NCFC would have been one of the teams in the conversation, but they folded. So it's just going to see who's going to be actually. It's not talk the talk, but walk the walk, and put the investment in and see how it goes. I'm excited for the soccer culture and what it's going to do for more fans, but it's something that we're going to have to see how it works.
Yeah, and so, NCFC did mention that they would come back, and so, that's also like, that might be a cop-out at the end of the day where they're like, yeah, we're just going to fold for a season or two till we come back, and start at that first division level. So we'll see what happens there. JT, any thoughts on what he said specifically on the pro and rel?
Yeah, obviously, I think it's a great idea. I think being honest, I've said this for a while as well. I think what is holding back U.S. soccer is having 2 separate entities that are competing to be the professional level in the United States. Until either it's just the MLS or just the USL, I don't think that will be near the level we want to. And I think the USL trying to make that move to add promotion relegation is taking that step forward and saying, look, this is what we think will take to help U.S. soccer be more competitive. And I think that's really what adding promotion and relegation does, is adds more competitive integrity across the board. Teams and players have to play until the very finish, or you'll go down and it'll impact your team financially. It'll impact your team in big ways, or you play until the very end because there's something to play for. And in the MLS, you kind of just don't see that. And you do see teams that go through lulls. But I do worry with the USL that they might be biting off more than they can chew, because right now they're still in a CBA agreement with their collective bargain agreement with their players. They haven't even come to a conclusion on how much they'll pay their players. And that expired in December, at the end of December, or at the end of last year. And they can't even figure out how much they're going to pay the players in their leagues and if they're going to give them healthcare or not. And so they kind of have to take care of that first before they really can iron out promotion.
Yeah. It sounds like they're trying to take big swings, Bryan. What can you add?
Yeah, I think the other bigger concern is just they're not in any of the big markets. Like, great, you could have pro rel, but if like you're trying to convince the San Jose fans that they should watch Sacramento instead of like right in the big, or like LA or any San Diego, New York, Chicago, right? These big markets, you're going to have to get fans there, and that's going to require more teams in the big market. So I think more so than the pro rel, being a factor. Like you could have the structure of saying this is like the better way to make the players compete. If you're not in the big markets that are going to bring the numbers of fans that you need, that will then support the players financially, like there's been times in England's history where they weren't the best league in the world. And they had Pro Rel that whole time, right? Sometimes it was Italy, sometimes it was other markets. Like Pro Rel by itself won't make it or break it. It was once Prem got the just an unreal amount of investment that they've gotten into the Premier League and all the levels now, right? With just like Hollywood stars deciding to throw money at Wrexham and then promote them through multiple levels, right? Things like that are occurring, and that's because it's become such a facade in a lot of ways of just like all these moving pieces and money and stuff kind of happening. So I think it's more than just Pro Rel that would need to make the change. I think you need to figure out a way. Yeah, definitely. First step is make sure your players agree to the amount of money and the lifestyle and like what working in that league actually looks like. That's bar none the first step. And then step two is like, how do you actually get these bigger markets to be a part of this league? Because without the big markets in the US, I don't know how they even come close to competing with MLS.
Yeah, I think for my take is it's 10 years too late. Like 10 years ago, there was more of a path to compete with MLS. Now I feel like the league is taking a big stride and a big bump away from, like, there's a big difference, in my opinion, playing MLS versus playing in the USL, right? Like you just talked about San Jose. They just signed Timo Werner. Like, there's players of very, very good quality that aren't just going to the LA, New York, and Miami markets. Zaha came to Charlotte. Thomas Mueller's in Vancouver, right? The league's getting more competitive. And I think like it feels like that opportunity that USL maybe could have had, like that to me is kind of gone now because they should have took a more ambitious swing earlier. And now I feel like MLS has gained a lot of traction over them. So I'm curious to see what happens, right? But for me right now, it's like a little bit too late to try to go this route and try to compete. And so another thing that Harry Toffolo mentioned was, the competition between, the MLS and the championship, right? Like we're pretty much going toe to toe in terms of getting to that level. Obviously, we saw Ajimon and Adilson Malanda go to the league, and they're fitting in great. Ajimon scoring goals, Adilson Malanda, people like, this is a Rolls Royce defender. We always knew that, and he's slotting right into the championship. Bryan, talk to us a little bit about this since TB90, Bryan, since you asked the question today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just been the big news right now is seeing the amount of clips of Ajimon coming out and people saying like championship is not even at the level of MLS and Malanda saying that. But then even like if you look outside of those two, Kai Wagner from Philadelphia went in and he had a goal contribution in his first two games as a fullback for Birmingham City. Ali Ahmed from Vancouver has 2 goals and 2 assists in his first 4 appearances for Norwich City. And that's a relegation battle team right now. So like, not even just in Charlotte, like across MLS, players are coming in and hitting the ground running. Aiden Morris, Malanda's new teammate, he's been at Middlesbrough for 2 years now, and he's already gotten like 60 plus appearances from the Columbus Crew now to Middlesbrough. So it just seems like across the board, a lot of these young developing players from MLS are hitting the ground running in championship. I think Toffolo still makes a good point that maybe the top tier of championship, I would say, is probably still a step above MLS when you can have 5, 10, 15 players at that level, at that DP level. That makes a difference. When you can field a field of DPs, you're going to beat a team of 3 DPs. And so I would say, and it also comes back to this is where promotion relegation plays a role, I would say, because you have these teams relegated that are Premier League quality, but playing in championship because they get moved down and they've been up there for a couple. Like Leicester City is a good example. That team's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're like in championship right now because they had a bad stretch. But that team has built up some revenue over years of being in the Premier League, and it's not like they just lose it all overnight. They take a big bump, but like there's teams like that in the championship that are worth a lot of money. and have a lot of good quality players that were Premier League quality teams that, for whatever the circumstances were, have dropped up and down a little bit. And so I think that tier is a little bit different. And that's, I would say, MLS is going to have a lot of trouble against those teams that are being dropped from Premier League, but have a lot of Premier League quality on them.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves is going to be a good example of that. Like they're getting relegated this season, but they're still they've been in the Prem for years, right? Yep. JT, seeing a player like Harry Toffolo, who's played Prem, who's played in England, who has pedigree there, talk about MLS and how close we're getting, to the championship. How much does that speak about the league? And the competitiveness now in MLS, that it feels like year over year we're growing and becoming a better league.
I think it speaks volume about the league. And you even see players, even Miles Robinson, who we mentioned a while ago, choosing to stay in the MLS, players that, will go abroad and see that, okay, there's competition here, but the MLS is worth competing in. And I think it just shows that the MLS is growing and is developing and is becoming a league that has quality players and has quality teams that can compete at the top. And it's not just teams like Inter Miami. And so I think it shows that Charlotte FC with a good season could be, I don't want to speak too soon or too big, but I think they could be a mid-table team in the championship.
Okay. It's a good take, Bryan, I'm going to ask you directly. Is MLS better than Liga MX now?
Yeah.
Dang. What makes you say that?
I don't know. I still America still comes and smacks the other team.
That's exactly what
but just the how can I say it? There's only 3 good teams in Mexico right now, and in MLS there's a bunch of good teams. They've proven the last 2 Leagues Cups they've won. U.S. teams have won it, and they have 2 tournaments in Liga MX. They have the winter and the summer, and there's no relegation, so it really don't work. It's the same teams winning the tournament over and over. So it's the lower teams just survive. It's just, and the MLS has been thriving. And I think after the World Cup, it's over. The soccer is going to be the number 1 sport, and it's over. Not just for Liga MX, for the world. I think the U.S. national team is going to take off too, man.
Yeah, I would say that with Liga MX, it's very comparable in terms of hey, there's they haven't had pro and relegation for years, right? And what that's supposed to do is, in previous Liga MX, 10, 15 years ago, every season you would feel like it'd be a different winner because it'd be there was more parity, right? And you're seeing that more and more in MLS, and you're seeing that less and less in Liga MX, not because teams aren't as competitive, is because other teams just aren't as good anymore. They're not attractive.
You look at their last champions, America 3-peat, and now Toluca 2-peat.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
The team that wins is with the team that has the money.
For sure. And also another thing I would add to MLS as well, Dennis Bouanga, 13 million offered from Inter Miami, 15 million offered, from Brazil. For a 31-year-old playing in MLS, I mean, he's a great player. I'm not taking away from that, but he's scoring goals in MLS. So those goals now have become way more valuable, right? That just to me shows, okay, this is a league that if he's scoring 20 goals in MLS, then this player is worth 10 to 15 million, even at the age of 31. It's not like he's in his prime. If anything, this is where, a striker starts, his descent. So that to me is really good signs of a competitive league and where MLS is heading. And so I'm curious to see a guy like Tokromati, this season, if he can put up, 10 to 15 goals again for Charlotte FC, what a price range Charlotte's going to ask, because they say, hey, we sold Ajiman at an older age for 8. This guy is at least worth twice as much. So it'll be very interesting to see. All right, let's move on to our next topic, I do want to touch on Wilfried Zaha's contract situation. Obviously, he's got 6 months left. We know the MLS season, at least for this year, will run till December, right? So, TB90 Bryan, what's going to happen with Wilfried Zaha? Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Is Charlotte going to negotiate a good contract? He told us that they're not having that conversation until after preseason. And that to me is a little bit like, why are they taking so long to make this happen?
It was super cryptic. I mean, you were there with me. You asked the questions, Jorge. He was, I mean, obviously one angle is like he was very professional, not willing to give anything up in either direction. I mean, because for him, he said, I mean, even just him saying that his kids like the school in Charlotte, I mean, that could cost him $200,000. Like the fact that Zoran hears that, like, oh, he likes the school. Maybe he starts a little bit lower than he would normally. I'm not like, right. I mean, those are and that's why I think Zaha approached those questions that you asked him very measured. He was not about to just go into it. Yeah, I'm diehard Charlotte. I'm going to stay here forever. Like he wasn't like that at all. He was very like, I like it here. I enjoy my time here. My kids like it here. But, you know, he also knew as a pro, as a veteran, that like negotiations don't go smooth all the time. This is sports. Things move fast. Antoine Griezmann could answer the phone and Zoran be like, well, this changes everything, right? There's just things that happen where like you just never can lock in a guarantee in this sport at any time. And so I think that's how he kind of approached it. He likes aspects of what can happen in Charlotte. He also just knows that we'll see how the conversations go. So I think those are the things to take away from it. In one way, if you were to look back at his quotes or the way he responded, maybe he almost in some ways, just because of how he talks and how he approaches things, made it sound like he was disinterested in Charlotte a little bit at times. But that really, for me, wasn't the case. I think it's him being measured, him being calculated, and him kind of being like, I'm not going to show my hand completely, and we're going to wait until the chips fall where they may after we actually start talking. I do like the fact that they at least knew that they're planning on having a good talk. I mean, he made that pretty clear. It wasn't like everything was done. It was just like, this isn't a great time. We got to get ready for the season. And then that makes it, I guess, a bit of a better time. But I also do think he has to show out, because the caveat in a lot of this is the first summer transfer window coming up where MLS will be like linked up with the top leagues around the world in like years and years and years, if ever. So the opportunities that Zoran has been talking about since he's come to Charlotte FC and since this team has been founded, that transfer window is finally happening. So I kind of also expect Zoran to be keen on a potential deal that falls to Charlotte late in this upcoming window, and wanting to maybe have some flexibility with the roster to be able to allow for that situation to happen. Right. So these are all the little caveats that come into play. We haven't even gotten into the CBA. We talked about the USL CBA agreement. MLS has a CBA negotiation that they have to come underway with new roster rules and salary cap changes and all that. That's coming up at the end of that would be a part of the Zaha era if he were to sign a new contract for multiple years. So there are definitely a few different factors that are going to have to be weighed in as to how long he plays here, things of that nature. So I think the summer window being a key one. If this doesn't get hashed out quickly, I think it could drag all the way almost until the summer, just because I would imagine there would be some other phone calls or just like, who else is going to be available this summer window? A World Cup's happening. A lot of momentum could shift and change and make values go up and down and all over the place just because a World Cup does that. So I think if Zaha if they don't get this contract wrapped up early, I think it could go all the way to the end, or kind of just end up falling apart just because other opportunities are going to present themselves.
Yeah. Yeti Bryan, TB90 Bryan just talked about, Zaha talking about the importance of milk and pizza at 8 a.m. for his kids at school, right? And that being key. To you, what's key in a deal like Wilfried Zaha staying at Charlotte?
If he stays, if he's automatic DP, or there's a different type of contract that he gets if he signs. That's another thing.
He's going to be a DP. Like, there's no way he takes non-DP money to stay here.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I'm fine with that. That's just the caliber of like player, leader, and it's like just for his press conference last week, he kind of already put it on himself that he expects double-digit goals and double-digit assists. So that's a positive. And like he said, his kids like it here. But if he goes and it goes south, like Bryan said, I expect Zoran to have a quality player of his caliber or higher than Zaha. Because if he just goes and we're stuck with Abada, then it's not Zoran. It's time for him to go. He's only hit on one or two DPs if we really think about it.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, he just re-signed a new contract, so we'll see. And yeah, I think Bryan brings a good point about this next summer transfer window. JT, obviously the caliber of player that Wilfried Zaha is, I think last season taught us that, like, okay, maybe it's not the Wilfried Zaha from Crystal Palace, but there's still a good marquee quality player in there that can get us out of certain situations, what are you going to expect from Wilfried Zaha, say he does sign a new contract with Charlotte FC?
Well, Wilfried Zaha can be a game changer whenever he wants to. Like, he can take the game by the horns and win a game and score a goal or provide an assist. And I think that's what he's going to be playing for this next season. At least the start of it is a new contract. And hopefully it delivers in the form of goals and assists.
For sure. Yeah, so I'm curious to see what happens here. Bryan, that really made me think as well, the summer window, and I honestly think that's also that's kind of playing a role with what's going to happen with Liel Abada as well. And so that brings me up to a question that, Christian asked in our questionnaire that we asked is Abada in or Abada out? It's that simple. And so who wants to take this? Whichever one wants to jump on that. I'll let you go.
I think Abada's in right now. Like Bryan touched on it earlier, it seems like he's going to be getting a lot of reps. And if he hits the ground running, man, I mean, he had a bad season last season, but he still finished with 5 goals. And Vargas, I think, had 6 or 7. So there wasn't really that much of a difference. But if Abada does what he needs to do, then I'm fine with, like he said, our DP. All it takes is 1 goal to forget everything.
Dude, you heard Yeti Bryan, TB90 Bryan, Abada is goated and he's going to be the DP of the season, Where are you at with this conversation of in or out?
Well, I mean, that's what he needs to show, right? I mean, I think he's in at this point. The windows have started to close. The rumors for a loan move or a move out was championship. I think that's where most of the rumors were swirling. And unless something I'm missing has come about, that window is now closed. So I don't think there's another route for him to get off of this club unless they just straight cut him, which would be a huge, huge loss to the budget for a guy who's 24. So there's definitely going to be moves available at some point. I think for some, I mean, we saw Bakari leave Austin FC. He was a DP that did not pan out for them. They still broke even on that and were able to get him to Poland. Luis Muriel, like Orlando, were able to ship him out, and he's like mid-30s, and they were still able to get money back for him. So for
Enzo
Charlotte,
Charlotte.
Yeah, Enzo Crepetti, right? Yeah. Well, we'll see about Chucky. Did Chucky Lozano get a move yet? I think San Diego's
not yet, but he's got
they're still stuck on his salary. That's even crazier situation because he's like on $7 million or something. I don't know how they move him, but yeah, I think Liel Abada at 24, they're gonna want to get some sort of value out of him, and if they see these other clubs able to break even, you'd imagine they want to at least do that. And so since that move probably didn't come about, wait till the summer and see if it can happen. He's still going to have an opportunity for minutes. I think there's no way Vargas has that starting role 100% of the way. Obviously, we also have to see where Rodolfo Aloco is at, but he's going to need to show out for his own personal sake to get a better move. You don't want to end up I don't know, Kukurecki or something like that. If you're Liel Abada and having gone from Celtic to MLS, you want a better move on your neck.
Abada Kukurecki. Oh, yeah, I think I'm with you. I think, we're starting to learn how Dean operates in his press conferences too.
Yeah.
He called the Bada a nice guy at the end of the
Yeah.
season. You know, there was no true indication that they're looking to move him on, at least not just yet. And he started both of the first 2 preseason games. So to me, it sounds like he's a player that they're going to count on. You know, again, you know, now for me, Abada is starting at a disadvantage because I was expecting a big season for him last year and he didn't deliver, right? So my expectations for him aren't at DP level, but he's got to show it on the pitch now. And I think for the best thing that can happen is he comes off and fires and comes in hot. Like you said, like people will forget, or maybe they won't, or maybe, you know, that he gets enough goals and assists that it warrants a move to the championship. Because as we figure out, players have markets in certain areas, and it sounds like Liel Abada has that championship market. A team wanted him in the summer, and some teams wanted him this window as well. Bryan mentioned that window was closed, so I'm like, where else would it make sense? Nowhere else. And so right now, as of today, it's Abada in because of how things are playing out. I don't think truly because, you know, it's a player that Charlotte sees like, okay, this is our guy, you know. And so with that said, you know, we've ran the show a little bit late, you know. Yeti Bryan, where can people find you at?
CLT FC Yeti Cadet Tuesday nights on YouTube. Our first show will be next Tuesday. We talk Charlotte, and it's a fun time. It's come check us out.
Awesome. JT?
Instagram and Twitter, JT_Faribault.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Boys, your first time on the show, so thank you so much for coming on. And also my co-host, we can't forget about you. Bryan, where can people find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Bam Our Media. You can find all my written content, topbid90.com. Yep, you know where it is.
You know what it is, black and yellow. All right. Have a good night, guys.
You're